Welcome to Epicor Eclipse ERP Sales Order Entry Basics for a Common Stock Order. This presentation makes use of the Quick Sales Order Entry widget in Solar. If you do not have that, use this process to add the widget into your Epicor dashboard. You right-click on the Open Dashboard area, select Add Widget. In the Widget Maintenance menu, select the Quick Sales Order Entry. You may want to change the icon and the color background if you don't like the defaults. Click OK and Close, and your widget for Quick Sales Order Entry will be added. Of course, the first step in processing a sales order is to go ahead and find the customer or create a customer if he doesn't already exist. So in the quick sales order entry window, start typing in the characters of the company name or the customer themselves, and the search list will narrow it down. Eclipse also allows you to search a customer by phone number. I don't know anyone that bothers with that. More trouble than what it's worth, but you've got that option in there. The more characters you type in, the shorter the search results are going to be for the matches. As you can see from the display, it's also going to allow you to, once you select the customer, look up open existing orders to continue or bids to turn into orders and continue to process. If after you've tried searching for the customer and you find that they don't exist, then it's time to go ahead and create a new customer on the fly. If you create a customer using this process, doing the Control W, keep in mind that this is going to be a cash COD customer on probably your highest price matrix. So they're not going to be getting any special deals, and you can't do a credit entry on this. If you need to have the customer establish a line of credit, you're going to have to talk to the credit manager and have that process started. But at least you can do a quickie here to start the process on a order where you're going to go ahead and take the payment right then. Once you've found the customer or you've created the customer, then you're going to get popped into the sales order entry body where you can go ahead and start adding products and accumulating things. If this is an order that's going to take a while, like several hours or a few days, because you have to check stock levels, confirm pricing, etc., who knows, what all the variables are. Get into the habit of converting the order into a bid, because while the sales order is open, the materials that you're putting on the order will be essentially committed, which could interfere with things. Once you switch it to a bid, then you've bought yourself time. It's not committing or affecting inventory, so you can go ahead and do this at your leisure. Keep in mind that bids by default expire after 30 days, so if you go past that point, you'll have to go into the bid and refresh it. Pay attention also to the credit status at the bottom of the sales order entry. In this case, we see cash or company check COD orders only, and of course that also means credit cards. So keep that in mind. The system is also going to warn you if this customer has a line of credit. If they get too close to the end of their line of credit, it'll pop up a warning. The sales order has 4 sections to it. You have the body, which deals with the product, the quantity of the product, and the pricing. You have the header, which deals with the terms, the shipping information and address, the customer purchase order number for their reference, and the assigned inside and outside salesman. The total section is going to give you, of course, the sales order total, the taxes, the shipping and freight charges, and all of that, and where you might be putting in prepayments or partial payments. And the status is the final and last screen that you usually deal with at the end of the sales order for setting the shipping options. And this, of course, is also going to show you the multiple generations of an invoice. Once again, notice the message at the bottom indicating the credit status. And if you're curious as to why, it will give you a warning if you click on the exclamation point a window will pop up and tell you the status of the account and the reason why it's set to whatever status it's set to. Going back to the body, as you can see, the system is arranged that you put in the quantity first and then the product. This may seem counterintuitive in the beginning, but actually this comes in very handy as you might be, you know the quantity, but you're not quite sure of the product, or you might have to do substitutes. So this is actually a convenience. So you put in the quantity first, and then you start typing in the descriptor information for the product. The more letters you type in, the shorter the search is going to get. And your search window will show as you see here in the example. Keep in mind when this, of course, deals with electrical distributors and specifically our company. Our system is coded that you have per each or per foot. So in the case of, say, conduit comes in 10-foot and 20-foot sections, but you don't put in one of a particular type of conduit because that would equate to 1 foot. So if you wanted to sell one 10-foot segment of conduit, you'd put in quantity 10. The system has been coded in such a way for products that are sold as such. You can't break it down to below what the minimum is. So once again, if you were trying to sell conduit, you couldn't sell 5 foot of conduit. The system is coded that you can only sell it in multiples of 10, 10, 20, 30, 40, etc. Certain types of wire also fall into this category, especially 500-foot spools of wire. We don't cut sections from a 500-foot spool. We sell the entire spool. This is not the case on the larger spools of bulk wire, like 25 to 5,000 foot. Those can be sold per foot. We don't normally sell an entire 5,000 foot spool of bulk wire. Boy, it would be nice if we could. Looking back at the selection window for the product, you see that if you're out of the product in your main shipping branch, and your main shipping branch is going to be determined by the terminal that you've logged into, where you're physically standing when you do the order. If you're out of stock in that branch and the system has been coded to authorize you to do a transfer from one branch to another, you can select the product from another branch. Also pay attention to the tabs at the top of the search window there. You see Primary Index, Catalog Index, and PDW Catalog Index. This is particular to our system. Primary and Catalog are standards in all Eclipse systems. PDW, you have to buy the PDW product in order to have that. What this means is, in the routine of normal maintenance of products, primary products or the primary index is reserved for products that are active. Which means they regularly get sold, or they have been sold in the past few years. If something has not been sold in 4 or 5 years, as a usual maintenance routine, they're moved to the catalog. This shortens the search on the primary index, making it much easier to find the common active products. But the things that are moved in catalog still exist. You can still complete the order on them, but it's a different, it breaks it out from the primary search index, so it's cleaner and easier. If you don't see something in the primary, get in the habit of clicking on the catalog index tab because it might be a archived product and show up on that list. Now, the PDW catalog index, the product data warehouse, is a companion product in Eclipse that allows you to create a product on the fly if it doesn't currently exist in the system. And it'll squeeze in the basics and allow you to put in the basic costing and go ahead and put that in the order. And of course, since it's newly created, it'll have to generate a back order to have the thing purchased and have the sales order fulfilled. But these are what those tabs are for, and keep them in mind. Just because you don't see it in the primary doesn't mean that it doesn't exist in one of the other two. It might have to be created, or you just pull it off the catalog. Once the product is selected, then you can go ahead and adjust the pricing if necessary. There are going to be many times when you go to search on a product and you cannot find it, and it does not exist in the primary, and it does not exist in the catalog, and it does not exist in the PDW. Oh my goodness, now what do you do? Well, at that point, you go through the process of creating a new non-stock item to be back ordered on. Before you create a new item, be very sure that it doesn't exist. Check in every possible combination of search that you can. Uh, Look for substitute items. Talk to other people, other salesmen, and see if there's something else going on. You want to try and be pretty sure that that item really doesn't exist before you create a new one. Creating duplicate items in the system causes a cleanup mess on the back end. There's usually someone or someones in the purchasing department that have to regularly go through the system and try and clean up and remove duplicate items. It is a tremendous pain in the butt. It throws off sales reporting. It throws off profitability. It makes it harder to search for the right item in the system. So do not create a new item unless you're really sure it doesn't exist. Now, having said all that, you start the process by hitting Control N after you're sure that's not there. So hitting Control N brings you into the non-stock product entry, and you go ahead and type in the catalog number of the product that you're going to create, and it's going to pull up a template for you to put in the basic information on the product to create this new non-stock item. The template requires a minimum set of information. The bare minimum that you can get away with is the description, the per quantity, and the cost. Any additional information, the better. If you want to make your purchase agent very, very happy, having the UPC code is very, very helpful, and he will probably kiss you. You might not like that, but anyway. You'll want to alter the price basis. I don't know what the basis is going to be in your system. Each one is different. Uh, the left screen shows you what the defaults are going to be for the template when you start. On the right hand is an example of something that should look approximately like what you're trying to do uh, at the end. In normal Eclipse description format, you're supposed to have a three-letter short name of the manufacturer, the catalog number, and a very short, brief description of what the item is. And so that's what I've represented here. In our system, all markup pricing for the products is based on what we call calc cost. So that's been changed as the product price base. You can put in a formula or not. Most of the time, you're not going to know what you want to mark it up as when you're creating it. And the very last bit is to go in the default cost field and tell the system what the cost is going to be. This is why you had to talk to the purchasing agent or the supplier first and find out what the heck your cost is before you go ahead and create the item, because you're going to need that. If you just invent a cost, you're going to cause issues. And after you've done all that, the very last step is to hit F12 or do file exit and save the product. And that's it. The product has been created. For anyone who's curious, and I'm sure nobody is curious, the template information that's used to create the non-stock item is referenced in control maintenance. Only your system administrator would probably have access to that. Under the key default non-stock product template, and that will reference the name of the template itself. And if you go into product maintenance and use that name, you'll bring up the template that's providing the basic information every time you create a new non-stock item. Occasionally, as things change or things get kind of screwed up, you may have to go back, hunt up this template and go back into it to tweak a couple of the default things just to make things work a little better. And congratulations, now you know a piece of information you didn't want to know. Some more information on product records that you probably don't want to know, but I'm going to tell you anyway. I have a captive audience. Ha! Anyway, when you are creating a new non-stock item in a sales order entry, that little template that you're seeing for new non-stock item, that's a simplified version of the product record. If you actually have access to product maintenance, and you can look up the record in product maintenance, you'll see all of the information that can be attributed to a particular product. Um, Here you see the first screen of product maintenance in all of its glory. There are, I believe, over 5 or 6 different screens of information that can be attributed to a particular product, so it can get involved. And of course, you as a salesman probably don't give a flying bleep about it, and you're quite happy to create a product that's blue thing number 3. I guarantee your purchasing agent will hate you if you if you do that kind of sloppy stuff, because in order for him to maintain the pricing and all that good stuff on the record, he's going to have to backfill all the stuff that you didn't put in. This is the reason why I'm bringing this up. The less you put in, the harder you make the job for the guy who actually has to maintain the records, and ultimately it will come back on you. He may, I don't know, pee in your coffee cup or something. But try and make things a little easier on your PA. Anyway, if you look at a product and product maintenance, this is the first screen that you typically see, and I'll just give you a little bit of information on this because if you want the full product maintenance, there's a training guide on just product record maintenance that you can get in all of the 5 screens of wonder. We're not going to cover that here because you already don't want to know what I'm telling you. Anyway, so description. As I mentioned before, standard Eclipse format for description is a 3-character code that represents the manufacturer, the part number of the item from the vendor, and a brief description. The length of the description, well, that depends on who you ask. I should also mention on catalog numbers, you see in this example 5601-2T. When you put a dash in something, that's a bridge. All of the information in the description is searchable information. So if you put in any part of it, and of course the first is more relevant than the last, but any part of it can be searched on to in the search list. When you put a dash in, that's a bridge. So what the system is seeing is you could search on 5601-2T, or you could search on 56012T. When it sees that bridge, it just says, oh, the 2T is part of 5601 and squishes it together. Just for, aren't you glad you know that? A description could be, as you can see from this box, is kind of tells you the point. You could make a description a paragraph long. That wouldn't be very helpful, but sometimes it's very, very hard to get all of the information, all the relevant information on a product squeezed into 35 characters, especially since you've probably already burnt several of the characters on the vendor abbreviation and the catalog number. So you can type in much more. You can type in several lines, but keep in mind only the first line is going to show up on your search window, and it's only the first line that's going to be printed on your sales order. So getting too long-winded is of limited utility. There's this other section for additional keywords. And keywords are a way of kind of ad hoc grouping items together. And it's a quick search. So like in the electrical distribution thing, a standard metal work box is referred to as a 4S box. And you could put in a shorthand like that, 4S box, to make it quicker and easier for people to search on. What is also used, and this is not really kosher, but it seems like everyone does this, is substitute or compatible products. They'll put those in the keywords as well. So you might, in this case, this is a Leviton item. Cooper wiring devices and Pass and Seymour make a compatible item. Rather than filling in the substitutes and cross-reference section in the product maintenance like you're supposed to, what someone did in this case was just put in a keyword for all three of those. So if you type in any of the keyword shortcuts for that item, it's going to reference back to this. Don't do that, but everybody does that. You'll see down here at the bottom, I mentioned the product. When I do my reports for my company, I always refer to that as the ECL ID or Eclipse Record ID. This is the actual database record number for this particular item. Not you as a salesman would really care about this, but if you have to do product maintenance, sometimes, if you want to make sure that you're working on exactly the record you think you're working on, rather than typing in the description, you type in the exact product record in the product field. If you put in a period first, that tells the system, oh, what you're typing after is an exact product record ID, not a description to search on. So if I was trying to pull up this specific product, I could take the risk of typing in Lev 56012T and hope that there are no duplicates and I get this one, or I could just type in period 23976 and get it. Aren't you glad you know that? Additionally, there is UPC codes. UPC codes are typically on the printed on the box. That's the Universal Product Code, I think it is, from the manufacturer. And this is depending on the age of your system. If you have an older Eclipse system, the UPC number is going to be 11 digits. If you're on a newer system, it'll be 12 digits. The only difference between an 11-digit UPC and a 12-digit UPC is a checksum number that's added on the end, so the barcode scanner has an extra check to ensure that it read the thing right. Typically, it's the 12-digit code that's actually on the printed boxes when you have the stuff on the shelf. Just keep in mind, if your company is planning on implementing wireless warehouse or all that good stuff, make sure you have the right UPC code formats in your system. Why do I bring up UPC codes? No one but the purchasing agent cares about them. But in Eclipse, the UPC code is a way of reducing the chance of duplicate records in the system. Only one record, only one product in Eclipse can have that particular UPC code assigned. It's a way of ensuring that you don't have duplicates. And the UPC is assigned by a standards group. The first 6 digits of the UPC code reference the manufacturer ID, and the remaining 5 digits are the reference the particular item that the manufacturer is making. And all of your product catalogs like Trade Service or IDW or AD Unilog tend to do all of their referencing by UPC codes for looking up missing information. So this is a quality control check that's used by the purchasing department to match up missing information in catalogs and keep the product record as accurate as possible. There, you can have multiple UPCs assigned. So Eclipse allows you, like in our system, it's an old system from 2005, so our primary UPC is always the 11-digit version of it. And that references back to Trade Service, which was our primary catalog service when we put this thing in, or Trimble, I guess they're called now. You can have up to 11 different user-defined codes, not necessarily UPCs. These could be 35-character strings that can be used for a variety of references. I use them as usually cross-referencing information from multiple catalog services, as providing multiple ways of being able to reference that record to the catalogs. So um, uh, in our system, as I was saying, the primary UPC is 11-digit. The secondary UPC, if there is one, is the 12-digit, which is just the 11-digit with a checksum number on it. So it'll match the box. So in case we put in barcode scanners in the warehouse, you know, uh, whether they have the 11-digit or 12-digit on the box, it'll still reference. EAN or GTIN, that is, I believe it's a 14-digit code, and this is the international coding of the product for products that might be shipped overseas. It's an extrapolation of the UPC, but in 14-digit format and used internationally. Um, you may use it, you may not, probably not. Now, for some idiot reason, um, they put the catalog number reference um, in the UPC section. And that I find massively annoying. Catalog number is kind of important. You'd think that'd be on the very first screen of product maintenance, and it's not. Um, and why is this important? Well, I mean, certainly if you're doing just regular searches in the system, having the catalog number embedded in the description is fine. If you're the purchasing agent or you're working with the purchasing department to ensure the quality and accuracy of product records, having a separate field that's just the catalog number to be able to do cross-referencing and lookups is extremely important. So guess what no one ever puts in? But as the guy, whoever that is, or girl, who's doing product maintenance, you might want to make a good habit of putting in and maintaining catalog numbers. Word to the wise, most companies, if you have inside salespeople or quotations or project people that are creating new product records, and they don't use the template and sales order entry, they put in usually the bare minimum, and usually they'll take shortcuts rather than creating a thing from scratch because they're not going to remember the price line and buy line. They're not going to remember what the status is, stock or non-stock, or the primary index, or what the commodity code is. They want to put in the bare minimum and move on to the next thing. And most times they will not create a new product from scratch. There's just too many. I think there's 20 or 30 pieces of relevant information you'd have to remember to enter, which no one ever does. So what most people do is a shortcut. They'll usually find an existing product that's similar from a similar manufacturer and copy it, and then just write in the couple of pieces information that's different. The problem with that is because catalog number is not on the front screen, they don't notice it. So the copy is now going to have the same catalog number as the old thing because no one ever thinks to put the catalog number in. Also, when you do a copy, most people do not rewrite the keywords. And now when you do a keyword search, now this whole new product that may not have any connection whatsoever to the product they copied now will show up in the search. So this just adds more additional aggravation for the poor person that has to do product maintenance. Why do I tell you this as an inside salesman? Basically, I'm asking you, don't be sloppy. The more information that you can provide when creating products, the easier life the purchasing people are going to have. Purchasing people are usually aggravated, frustrated, and exhausted, and usually on the edge of a nervous breakdown. And the fewer things that you do to cause more of that edge towards the cliff, the better. Anyway, enough said on that, and back to our regularly scheduled program. Oh, I lied. One last piece of information we want to review before we get back to the sales order entry. I know, bear with me. We talked about, like in the case of conduit or certain sizes of spool wire products, that it's put in the sales order as per each, which actually means per foot, but there's a setting put in the product record to prevent you from selling below what makes rational sense. So a 10 foot piece of conduit pipe, you can't sell 1 foot of it. Um, the parameter that makes that magic happen is what you see, the cell package quantity, which is this entry here in the product maintenance. Occasionally, if someone's created a new product, they've copied an old one, the last thing they thought to do was maybe check the cell package quantity, and now you go to sell something and you can't sell the quantity that you need to, despite the fact that you are selling it at the right quantity. If that happens, talk to your purchasing agent, whoever maintains the product records, and have them adjust the cell package quantity appropriately. And now that we forgot what we were originally talking about, blah, 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 and we've created the new non-stock item, and it's been added to the sales order body, and there it is as such. And the unit price will have been calculated by the base cost and the multiplier according to this customer's classification. And there we see the product there. Notice the availability doesn't have a now, it has a date, and these are parameters that have been set in the system to assume that this is going to be a back order, and this is the earliest that the back order is likely to be filled, and it's just an estimation. And now that we've gone through all the process of creating a new non-stock item and all the relevant information you need to know about products, now I'm going to remove that, and we'll go forward with sales order entry. A sales order has multiple different views that you can employ to take a look at different pieces of relevant information pertaining to that product in order to complete the sales order with accuracy and also a bit of negotiation. If you click on the magnifying glass on the right-hand side, you'll get this pop-down menu of the particular views that you're able to employ. Depending on how you've been set up in the system and what authorizations you've been given, your list might be slightly different than this one. There are things you might not be able to do. But this is the full list if you got the full authorizations like me, because I'm the systems administrator. Haha. Anyway, the two common views that you flip back and forth through are usually the default, which is in our system unit price, extended price, and availability. And the other view typically is unit price, cost, and margin. And nature of the distributor industry, Joe Podunk and Son comes in and wants to order 12 of something, and he asks, "What's my price on this?" And okay, well, in this case, it's $1.51 a piece. And guy goes, "No, I'm not going to pay that. And it's $1.25 over at Home Depot." In a perfect world, your salesman would go, "Yeah, fine, go buy it at Home Depot." That's not what happens. So the salesman will usually flip it into unit price, cost, margin, and tweak the margins a little bit to get the price down to something competitive. So Joe Blow and company will buy the darn product. And that's just the fact of the distributor world. In our case, in our particular company, about 80% of the products that are sold are price overriding. And yeah, it would be great if we could just take the pricing that the system was taking, but that just doesn't seem to be the way the distributor world works. Anyway, so that's how you change the views, and that's why you would change the views. And as I just mentioned, this is what the margin view would look like if you flipped it into that. And the salesman would normally adjust the GP accordingly to get the price down. Now, there are controls in the Eclipse system to prevent them from selling something below a certain GP margin or raising it too high. Yes, actually, salesmen do sometimes try and raise things up too high. So I have no idea what the parameters have been set in your system, but there are controls built in to make sure that they don't go too far. And typically, the normal setup is a newbie counter salesman is going to be locked out of being able to do much tweaking of margins and on some of the views, but your more experienced inside salesman and outside salesman will be given this because they're doing harder negotiating sells. Everyone tends to forget about this, including me, but if you click on a blank line in the body and right-click on it, you'll get this wonderful pop-up menu with a whole bunch of additional functions that allow you to put in notes or do additional functions in the sales order. It's a nice convenience. We all tend to forget it's in there, but I've shown you that, so now you won't forget, right? A note on the reorder pad. Customers are fussy. They tend to want to gravitate to one salesman every time because that's my guy that gives me the special price. And well, lo and behold, your coworkers have lives. Things happen. They get sick. They're not there. They went out to lunch or whatever, and now you have to fill in that order. And as the nature of the distributor industry is, yeah, there's certain things that a customer regularly reorders and a price that he's used to seeing. And if you're the guy that now has to be the guy to fill in for his guy, knowing those pricing it would come in handy. Uh, so that's where the reorder pad comes in. So if this scenario happens, the customer comes in, he's ordering a regular item, he wants his usual price. Within the sales order, if you hit Control O, you get a reorder pad, and the reorder pad remembers the last, I believe, 50 items that the customer has ordered, and I think it ranks it by the most active or most recent, that type of thing. And that allows you to just go through it, put in the quantities, select it, and it'll drop the last pricing that the guy's used to right into the sales order, and now he's happy and you're happy and life continues. Anyway, so very, very handy function, Control O reorder pad. So sales orders are pretty elegantly sorted up in the what, where, and how. So we just went through the what in the body, and usually after you get all that filled out with the products and the pricing, then you may have to go in and tweak the where, and that's where the header comes in. There are times where you occasionally might have to tweak the shipping address. Maybe the customer wants it sent to a particular job site or the next door neighbor. I don't know what. He may want a customer PO put in, so that'll reference his internal POs, so his accounts payable people inside his company can match up the invoices better. And uh, typically, you may also put in some notes for shipping instructions. And you'll notice, of course, there's two types. There's shipping instructions and there's internal notes. Shipping instructions will print in the shipping instructions section of the sales order. Internal notes are just for internal uh, employees and does not print anywhere, and therefore uh, the customer will not see it. Probably not a good idea to put anything that that you don't want the customer to read, even though you're pretty sure he's not going to have a chance to see it. You don't want to muck that up and put the wrong thing in the right place and piss off the customer. Anyway, there are many more fields of information here that you can tweak. But as I said, the most common ones that you're just tweaking are usually address, PO number, shipping instructions. After you get through with the body and the header, then the next step is the status. And that's the how is the customer standing in front of you and he's going to pick it up right now, or you're going to have to ship it to him. And if there are delivery dates that you have to tweak, all that's done in the status. In this case, our example is going to be a counter order. We expect the customer standing in front of us. We got to go pull it right now and hand it to him in his hot little hands so he can speed off in his truck and go install the thing and make money. So there are a variety of order statuses that you employ at different times. We're not going to go through that in this one because we're just assuming, as I said, this is a will call pickup now counter sale order, which was our simplest of examples. So in our case, you switch the order status to P. The ship date is right now. The ship via is going to automatically populate in our system anyway to will call COD. And uh, and that completes that part. And then you're going to go to the totals for payment. So here we are in the total section, and in this case, of course, it's going to give you the subtotal, tax if it applies. If there's some freight and handling charges you need to add in there, then you go ahead and add that here in the totals. And then you go ahead and put in the under cash, check, or credit card, what the amount you're going to be accepting there is. And of course, it shows you the net total. Um, in our case, in our particular company, if we enter cash, typically we've got a cash box, got to run into the accounts receivable person or the ops manager and go make change. If it's a check, we have a check authorization company called Crosscheck that we use, and you have to run the check through the check authorization terminal, which looks like a credit card terminal, a Zon terminal they call them, and get an approval number before you accept the check. If it's a credit card, some companies use standalone credit card terminals, and you'll go through that process depending unique to your particular company. In our case, we bought a companion product from Eclipse called the Element, or now Vantiv, payment gateway processor. So we've got swipers that are attached to the USB port of the PC terminals, and it's processed in Eclipse. And there's some advantages to having standalone terminals. There's some advantages to having Element Vantiv. Your mileage varies. Vantiv works pretty well, but it has some slightly annoying quirks, and it's a fairly pricey companion product. But it does save a few steps, makes things a little quicker. So anyway, those are the different ways of accepting the payment here. In our particular example, we're just doing a simple accepting cash and being done with it. So, since we're taking cash here, as you see, I've accepted $10 in cash from the customer. I've entered that in. The system's calculated how much change that I need to give him back. I go grab the person who has the cash box, make the change, and complete the sale. In our particular case, we put the money and the sales order ticket in the box so that the credit manager can reconcile the cash box at the end of the day. Your company may do it differently. In the case of accepting checks, as I mentioned, with our system, we use a cross-check check verification system. So the process would be to put the check number in the check number field and the totals, and run the check through the verification terminal and get an ID for approval. And of course, that's the check and the verification printout from the check verification terminal get stapled onto the sales order and put in the box to be reconciled at the end of the day. And you may have a check verification terminal, you may not. Now keep in mind that the credit manager may have put a block on the account so that you're not allowed to accept checks. So be sure, look at the bottom there, that you're allowed to take a check from this guy before you go through that process, or else you'll be wasting time. In the case of accepting a credit card payment, of course, you'd enter the amount that you're ringing up in the credit card field. And as I said, in our system, we use Element Vantiv, so it's kind of keyed in there. And quite likely, the customer has already used the credit card before. And if that's the case, Vantiv has already put the information in there, and you can select it to go ahead and finish the processing. If it hasn't, you'll have to go through the Vantiv process of entering that information in the first time. I should have a presentation on there on how to use the Vantiv credit card process if you have Vantiv. If not, if you just have a standalone terminal, then obviously this bit for Vantiv isn't going to show up. You're just going to put in the credit card information, run it through the standalone Zon terminal, get the receipt, staple the verification receipt onto the sales order, and put it in the drawer for reconciliation at the end of the day. So just depends on what you got. After you've processed the payment, if you go in the status, you'll see the payment show up here in the order status. And you may be familiar with orders. Orders can be canceled up until the point where payment's received on them. And then you can't really cancel the order because you've received payment, but you can make adjustments to it to correct it or avoid the payment if necessary. Just keep that in mind. So after we've completed the order and escaped out of it, the documents pertaining to this order should go ahead and print immediately. Since this is a counter order, we'll call customer right there. This is going to print at the front counter immediately. And in our system, we're going to have two copies that are printed. Eclipse uses color-coded documents, so one color is going to be the internal color, and you'll grab that and go and pull the order out of the warehouse and bring it back, and then put that in the drawer, and the other copy will go to the customer. What is on the customer copy is dependent on the settings in the customer's record. So sometimes a customer doesn't want the electrician that's coming to pick up the parts to know the pricing, and so it'll be blanked out. So form selection is going to look different from system to system and customer to customer. But anyway, this is the basics of what it looks like. And you'll notice in the upper right-hand corner there is a barcode on our forms, and I think this is fairly standard for all Eclipse systems. That barcode comes in handy, or it's important if you have bought the document imaging product. And if you don't have document imaging, boy, you should get it. And this allows you to scan in the pick tickets or the proof of deliveries after everything's been processed. It makes it much easier for the credit manager to do their job. The reason why I mention it, as a salesman, you don't really care, but when you're stapling things, do not staple things over the barcode. If you damage the barcode, document imaging can't read it and it can't work. So if you're going to staple things, staple it on the opposite side or staple it lower. Uh, Keep the barcode clean and don't mangle it. And this completes our presentation on sales order entry basics for a standard cash COD counter order. Hopefully this has been informative and not too insane. I realize I've covered product maintenance, probably more than you ever wanted to hear as a salesman. It's important though, that's why. Be nice to your purchasing people. Don't make life harder on them. Anyway, hopefully this is useful. I realize that everybody does training on sales order entry. Mine's a little bit different. There's more to this series, but it's a good foundation to start. Anyway, thank you for your attention, and as always, I'm not Scott Zahn, but I'm probably Doug Fashing. Thank you.